I'm Ava DeLeon, and this is my friend Hope. She's an amazing costume designer and has designed several things with me and for me. And we're going to take you today on a little adventure to see all the things that we're working on. Stay tuned. Hope has been working with me for a while. This is our second time working together in the pageant setting, going to nationals. Our first time is when we did Lone Star US of A. If you've seen any of the videos of Anything Goes, Hope was the costume designer behind all of that. So she has a lot of insight. Hope, you work in the theater as a costume designer, right?
I am.
How long have you been doing that?
I'm coming up on 8 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So, with just costuming in general, how did you get started into that?
Actually, I've been designing fashions with that since I was 5 years old. First started with my Barbies, and then I started sewing, got my first sewing machine at age 9. I thought I wanted to go into fashion design, but I just wanted something with a little bit more drama to match my personality.
We love the drama.
You know, and so I sent an email to my local theater. I literally typed in the city I live in and theater and sent them an email just saying that I would like to help out. And that was the show I met you on.
What, La Caja Fall?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, that was probably my second community theater production I'd ever done. Was La Caja Fall, and that's how Hope and I met each other. I didn't realize that was your first gig. Hope was my dresser for that. Oh my God, full circle. Hope was my dresser for that show, and we'll get into more of that later. But she dressed me, and when I was competing for Lone Star US of A, Hope dressed me for that as well, and that was, I think, our only times of you dressing me, being my personal dresser, was that. So that's our full circle moment. So with being a dresser, let's talk about that real quick before we get into full costuming. What is the job of a dresser? What does a dresser do?
We get you ready. We help keep you calm. The most important thing between dresser and dressy is that trust of, hey, I need this done. All right, I'll make that work for you. It's just keeping an eye on how things need to be, whether it's, overall shape, whether it's little details. It's just making sure that at the end of it, it all comes together. So. And
that's in the theater and also just with pageantry as well. I turn my brain off when I'm backstage at a pageant, essentially. And I trust that Hope or any of my dressers will know what to do. We've rehearsed all of our changes multiple times, just like you would in the theater. So we know whenever I'm coming off from one category, we know exactly what goes into the next category, and so on and so forth. So that's a really great thing. One of the perks of having Hope being my costume designer and my dresser for pageantry is she knows these costumes backwards and forwards just as well as I do, which you'll see in a little bit with our little fitting teaser. We probably go through a minimum of 5 fittings.
Yeah,
at the least.
Probably more.
Anything goes. We had probably 10.
Probably
10 or 12.
Yeah,
we had 10 or 12 fittings, and so it takes time. You're not going to get the perfect costume right off the first sew. If you do, call me. We'll be in touch. Teach us your secrets. But it takes time, and one thing that is really important between you and your costumer is, one, have someone that knows what they're doing. And if they're new and you're both new, great, be very communicative with them in what you're wanting. Hope and I are really good about working with each other. We have all of our design sketches that we look at before we start the design process. And once we start getting into sewing and pattern drafting, once we get all of the muslin mock-ups, people call them muslins, mock-ups, toiles.
Yeah.
Are there any?
I usually go with either mock-up or muslin.
Mock-up or muslin. I think toile is more of a European thing.
It sounds very European.
Good job, Europe. Way to go. Cheers to you. With the mock-up phase, that's when you can start putting on your fabrics. That's when you can start putting on the costume in a cheap fabric, so a muslin or dollar yard cotton that you can get at any clearance center, the thrift store. Bed sheets are really good if you get a non-stretch bed sheet. Those are really great way. Old curtains, really good way to make up some mock-ups.
Yeah.
to save some money with that. And when you're going through on your body, as a competitor, as a person wearing the garment, you want to be very clear with your designer if you feel comfortable in it. That's the number one. Do you feel comfortable? Is it too tight? Is it too loose? Is it slipping somewhere? And then having your designer go through and pulling and pinning and making markings all over the garment that you're wearing. What are some key things that you look for when it comes to fit when you're first testing out a mock-up?
So more than anything is something gaping from the body. That's a big thing. I mean, that's an easy thing to spot, but it's also such an easy thing to fix, to completely change the quality of everything. Because you can have a nice looking dress, but if it's not fitted to the T, then it's gonna look cheap. So once you get that right fit, it brings up the quality so much. And as a designer, it's very easy to see all of these pieces as kind of like your babies. So don't take it personal if things need to be changed. It's about the overall look, and in the end, are you both going to be happy with it?
Yeah.
Because if we go through our fittings, and we're both very nitpicky about things. So if I bring them the first option and it doesn't work out perfectly and I storm off, like, that's not going to get us a beautiful product.
Or also, as the person wearing it, if the first try doesn't work, great. Figure out why it doesn't work. Take the time to talk through it, because then you're going to get a better result. If you're just like, oh, this didn't work, you suck at your job. One, you're going to offend your designer. They're never going to work with you again. And you're going to have to do all of this, all that pre-work that you've done with a new designer. And they may have a problem on the first mock-up too. So just find those comfortable lines between designer and wearer.
Mm-hmm. Plus we hold the pins. So.
Yes, they could jab you. They won't, but they could. It's always an accident.
If something is too tight or if something doesn't close, I know the bodysuit that we did for Anything Goes, that is probably the most fittings that we did because we wanted it to be perfect.
Yeah, so I think with Anything Goes, the first two, the pants were great right out of the gate. We changed like one thing on those. The bodice that we did for Anything Goes, the first mock-up was great. It got some really good design lines, but there was a lot, it wouldn't close in the back. Yeah. I have a really weird shaped back, so like just going off of just strict measurements, there's always gonna be things you have to tweak. So it was like 6 inches in the back, it wouldn't close. And so we had to change all of that. And so then we got the next mock-up, which closed, but then it was way too large. So then we had to take everything down. It was also really just complicated. It looks super simple, but it's a very complicated pattern in how it comes together and the way the darts are. So you don't change the lines in the pinstriping. Big bucket of crazy. And so that took a lot. And sometimes they'd be doing the fitting, going back and sewing it, coming back again and being like, oh, taking this in, we had to let this other part in more or let it out or take it in again. So it's always a back and forth. Yeah. And at some point, a garment can be overworked where you're just like always fixing it because it's never going to be perfect. At some point, you have to just say, this is good enough and move forward. But you need to get it as close to that point as possible. So Hope, working in the theater, you've done a lot of musicals and plays, something where you have to have a concept or an idea and then bring that to life. Mm-hmm. With doing that, how do you translate that to costuming for a talent, for a pageant?
Well, especially with your talents, there is a very clear end goal and there is an overall look that we are trying to achieve. And you also are really good at like keeping with time period. So to have those guidelines is really helpful because then it almost takes away any kind of like guesswork or stress that you might have to know this is what needs to happen. This is the overall look that we're going for. And that's the same thing with shows. You know what needs to come across. You know what costume needs to go into the next scene and how those little tweaks need to be made. So it's about the same thing. It's just much more condensed and more sparkles.
Lots more sparkles. So when you're designing for a talent number, let's say any song, like just it's a song or maybe a mix of songs, for someone who's trying to do everything on their own and trying to come up with all their stuff by themselves, what are some points of advice when someone's coming up with costuming? What are things they should look for to tie into? Like, how do you decide what period the number's in? Or if it's not any period, it's just a performance, like contemporary, how do you decide those things and what color palettes to use and the cuts and shapes? What are different ways to come up with that?
So first of all, have your story. What story do you want to tell? Is this, if you're doing, a beautiful contemporary piece, is it sad? Is it a love story? Is it, I don't know, a murder mystery? Whatever your story is.
Someone make that happen.
Yeah. Figure out what that is, and then color is a really big thing for me. Each color has its own meaning. So like yellow can be joyful and happy. It can also mean cowardice. Red can mean power. It can also mean love. So I say look behind the meanings of colors because that's something that we pick up subconsciously also. So that's a really easy thing for picking up color palettes. Just say, I want this to feel powerful, and like go to Google, type in powerful color palette, and it'll give you. Google is amazing.
Google's your best friend.
Yeah.
It'll get you right together.
It really will. So decide on your story, decide on what feeling you want to have, and then Google your heart out because it'll come up with suggestions and it'll help you kind of piece that together. And then it's also making sure that you don't go overboard.
Yep.
And you don't go too deep into the story because remember, you're presenting this to an audience who isn't in your brain. So you also need to simplify.
And you only get anywhere from 5 to 7 minutes depending on the system you're in. If this is for a talent, the judges may not be familiar with the show you're doing a number from, or if you're doing just a contemporary song, they may not be familiar with the artist or every word that is in the songs. They may not understand if you're picking up like referencing a specific line in the song. Either hit them over the head with it so they know exactly what you're doing, and be as broad as possible, or do something different. You just really want to make sure that you're communicating really clear and thoroughly and to the lowest common denominator. So one thing I like to do is keep it simple, stupid. So the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid. We'll see if we can put that in the FBB cut. Using the KISS method for keep it simple. It's not necessarily keeping it basic. Simple and basic are going to be two different things. Keeping it simple means that there's a clear beginning, middle, and end, and there's not a lot of fluff in between as far as different content. So you do that with your costume designing, whether you're wearing one costume the whole piece, whether there's reveals and changes and quick changes. It just makes sure there's a clear reason why you are wearing what you're wearing. That's how I like to look at it. So I had to get back in my position. Boop.
Oh yeah, continuity.
Drink for continuity errors. Drink water, children. Water.
There we go. Drink water.
Or sparkling water by Topo Chico. We're not sponsored, but we could be. If you buy Topo Chico, send them an email that I sent you there. They don't know who I am, but send it anyway. So once you have all of your designs put together and you have a plan of attack on what you're going to do, the next thing that we would do is fabric shopping. That's the fun part. Yeah. So with fabric shopping, we've done in a couple different ways. We've just sourced online, looking at Wholesale Fabric Direct. That's another great place to look at. Amazon, especially if you're not super picky about the fiber content, like you're not trying to use all natural fibers. You just need something that looks good, especially for something that might be a little more affordable. Those are great options. We did all of our fabric shopping, I believe, from Wholesale Direct for Anything Goes, for the Lone Star prelim. For this, we did a little combo of a lot of online shopping plus in person. We are both local to Dallas, so we went to the fabric district of Harry Hines, down there to some of the fabric stores. And we went shopping, looking at stuff. Basically, we took our sketchbooks and matched up whatever fabric we thought we needed and kind of just took our sketchbooks through all the stores, seeing if something popped out at us to see if we could use it, whether it was trim, different fabrics, embellishments, zippers. There was one fabric we thought we were going to use for one costume that we can't talk about. And then we saw something else. We're like, what if we change this? And we're like, yes, let's get that. It'll be great. Also, at more, I don't want to say mom and pop, but less chain fabric stores. So not Joann's, not Snobby Lobby, other places like that. At more of the wholesale type fabric stores that you can go to, talk to the people that work there, talk to the owners, show them what products you're trying to make, and they can probably recommend some really good fabric options for you, especially if you're looking for something that you know is common. We needed a little bit of black neoprene at one point. And we found out through the owner of the shop that black neoprene is super, super hard to find right now, especially in local shops, because of COVID and the shipping delays and the shipping costs and things like that. They're not really making it anymore because it comes from China, Asia, I think China. And so it's hard to get it. And so that is something that's on short supply or just not being re-put in stock right now. So we were actually able, because we were looking for it and we asked about it, we were able to figure this out, because if not, we just kept going store to store and not been able to find it. But we were able to find a source online that had enough in stock, and they were able to ship it to us. So that's a great thing. Always ask your store clerks and associates. They will get you what you need, especially if you have like a really specific idea. They may not be able to have it in stock, but they can go to their distributors and get it to you. That's another great thing to use, are your local sources. I hope this was helpful to you when it comes to figuring out how to costume your talent number or any type of production that you might be working on. With that, we'll definitely keep you in the loop as we get further down. We just had our preliminary fittings today. We touched a little bit on that. So next time, hopefully we'll be able to show you some more of not finished garments, but more where they're being made in the fashion fabric, where we're going through our next step of the costuming. I can't show you everything because I do want to keep a little bit secret, but hopefully you'll get a little bit of a teaser, and come May 24th through 27th, you'll be able to join us in Dallas for Miss Gay US of A and see myself and all the other lovely entertainers that are going to be competing for the title of Miss Gay US of A. And it's just going to be a fun old time. So with that, is there anything else you want to leave the people with?
No. Go off in costume and have fun.
Have fun. Cheers to that. Clink. We're not sponsored, but we could be.
Why do we say clink instead of just letting it make the sound?
God, I hate us.
That was like my last.
I know.
I went to take more. I was like, nah, that was it. I have commandeered the camera from Logan just to show you a little bit behind the scenes of how we put his finale talent costume together. So first we met and we talked about what exactly he wanted every piece to look like. We decided what needs to be fully made from scratch and what needs just alterations. From there, we did things a little bit backwards. We went shopping for fabric and we did his measurements next. And then my first step when it comes to fully making something is I like to sketch out the pattern pieces just on a quick piece of paper like this, just so I can get the math down in my head. And then from there, I transfer this idea over to making the actual pattern. So just for example, I like to use fabric whenever I make my patterns because it's easier for me to manipulate. So like this would be a sleeve. So I did that for each piece, for each costume that needed to be made. My go-to for measuring things out and keeping my lines straight is my lovely see-through ruler. Use that for everything. And then also my curved ruler, my tailor's chalk, and just a pencil. So from there, I made the pattern pieces, I cut everything out, and then now I am in the sewing phase. So I'll show you a little bit of what sewing looks like and how I get in the zone. So now that I have all of the pattern pieces cut out, I then took the pattern and put it on top of our mock-up fabric, which we are using muslin. It's just easier to use. And I got all of those pieces cut out, make sure I had the right seam allowance, which I like to use a 5/8 inch seam allowance whenever I'm doing mock-ups, just because it gives me more room to play with if I need to let something out just a little bit, and it's easier for adjusting. So I've got some pieces pinned up for a facing for a little surprise piece. And I am now using my sewing machine. His name is Andre. He is wonderful and has only been with me for a couple months, but we love him. Also, you notice I'm not doing any kind of stay stitching or backtracking, just because with the mock-up I probably will have to take some pieces apart. So it's just easier to not have to deal with all of the extra crossing stitches, but it'll still hold up nicely. Alright, the facing is done. I am now going to press out these seams with my steamer/iron named Flojo, because she's hot and fast. And then I will continue on with that for the rest of the piece until it's completely done.
So this is one of the looks that we're working on. We just put it on, the camera died, but we just put it on and we took in all the darts and things. I'm gonna go check in a big mirror, then we're gonna rewatch the tape to see if there's any other adjustments, but this is step one of doing a fitting with a muslin. So this is another costume that we're doing. This is a cover up, but that's revealing something secret that we can't show you yet. But this is the mock-up that Hope has created. Here's Hope. She's gonna talk you through kind of what alterations we're gonna do to it and the structures in place that are gonna make it do its thing.
All right, so starting with the sleeves, we're gonna give them just a little bit more length. So whenever, we've got big arms, we're covering the wrists. And then we're gonna take this waist here and drop it about 1 inch so it's a little bit more uniform all the way across. We're gonna change the collar or the lapel shape up just a little bit so it's more of a notch. And then we're gonna add just a little bit more drama in the back. So while it's a very nice and full skirt, we're gonna have a little bit more fun with it.
And the reason that we're doing that is the underneath has a lot of fullness and almost a bustle effect in the back of the costume that's underneath. So we need to cover that and still keep it hidden, but also not collapse it down and make it too tight.